Do the due diligence yourself. Be curious, not judgmental. Find out. They may be right, and it may not be a good deal or a good business or a good time. But validate that yourself. Don't listen to others. And I think not doing that or doing that on our own and not listening was the validation, especially with the success we've had, that I needed.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why? Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I'm here with Joe Downs. Joe is a lifelong entrepreneur with business ventures spanning securities, mortgage, hospitality, and real estate. He co-founded the Belrose Group to pursue opportunities within the self-storage sector. So, Joe, like I said, I feel like this stuff always sounds much better coming from the guest themselves. So the first thing I want to do is say thank you. Thanks for coming on the show today. Thanks for taking the time and to come share your story with my audience. I truly appreciate it.
Listen, I'm so grateful that you give me the platform and the time, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you. And I commend you for, if I may steal a little bit from you right now, I commend you for this podcast because this is the first one I've been on. I'm on a lot where we're going to talk about the why behind the real estate. You know, why do we get up and do what we do? And I'm going to start listening to yours. I'll admit I haven't because we just met recently, but this is the stuff that interests me too. So I'm excited. We'll see where it goes.
Well, I'm sure this will be an amazing conversation, but I hope you enjoy the podcast when you listen. We've had some really fantastic guests, like I said, kind of across the board. So, but let's just start our conversation with your story, your background. I mean, there's a number of different sectors, I guess, related, but seems like you've done a few different things. So tell us a bit about your background in your life and what got you to where you are now.
Yeah, and you're right. I have done a few things and a few different, but mostly related things. And it's been a journey. And what I've learned along the way is that, and it took me, I guess I'm slow on the uptick, but it took me, I don't know, probably into my 40s and like my second or third iteration of what I'm doing to realize, hey, you're kind of a serial entrepreneur, and actually I take pride in that today. I'm not, nor would I want to be employable. I'm no matter what happens with self-storage, which is I think it's gonna be great, and I love it. And I love my other company, Distress That, but who knows, whatever happens, I'll reinvent again and I'll figure it out. But, so shortly out of school, I became a financial advisor. It wasn't my first job, but it was what I did for the most of my 20s. Which is to say I was a glorified, financial planner and insurance salesperson, because that's the products we sold, right? Yeah. Mutual funds and life insurance and disability and long-term care, et cetera. And I didn't love it. And I went from American Express Financial Advisors to Prudential Securities. And I was in that job when 9/11 happened. And it wasn't so, I definitely don't want to give any impressions of stolen valor, like anything like that. I didn't lose anybody that close to me in the towers. I knew one or two people tangentially, but it was more of an eye-opening and a moment for me to say, what are you doing? I didn't love it. I was growing a business, but not really. I didn't really ever feel like I had control of it. Because during that time, while I lived through a couple different wild market swings. And regardless of what you were taught and preached to and told to tell your clients, none of it made sense. So to me, and I'm not trying to bash the stock market too much. I think it's important to be diversified as personally as we invest. And I have money in the market as well. And look, most people have money in their 401ks. And I think that's great, actually, because you're dollar cost averaging. But as a business owner, which is what you are when you're creating your own kind of clientele and book of business. I didn't feel like I had any control. And I didn't like it for that reason. So I took some time after 9/11. I didn't leave the business right away, but an opportunity popped up to own a bar and restaurant. Now I was already bartending at the bar. It was a college bar. It was Villanova bar actually, and that's why they got shut down actually, because I guess the owners didn't pay attention to some of the liquor control board laws. But I was just a bartender. So the opportunity came to they got shut down to reopen it, and they backed me, and I raised money to do it. Because I think I was 30. What 30-year-old doesn't want to own a bar, right? It's like a rite of passage. It's in our DNA as a man, right? Especially when you hit that age. Don't do it. If you're listening, don't do it.
Yes. Yeah.
The bar was the fun part, but the restaurant was the business. and
yeah.
Man, did I learn a lot. And I lost like $100,000. And that didn't feel good. Coming out of it, I think I almost made it a year, and when we had to, close up shop. But it was a hell of a learning experience. And I've adopted this. I didn't realize it at the time, but looking back, and I've listened to a lot of motivational speakers and read books and whatever. And I love the phrase, you're either winning or learning, right? Mm-hmm. So you could lose, but that's if you didn't learn. So I just look at that 100,000 and that experience is invaluable, an invaluable learning experience. And I still, I use it to this day, even as I, run Belrose Storage Group. But I had to reinvent, and I knew, and I'm broke. So I took a job in sales. I was selling radio. I don't know if you ever saw the movie City Slickers with Billy Crystal. Yep. And he's one point he says, "I sell air." That's literally what I did. I sold air, and you never know. I was probably there a year and a half, and probably a year into it, you just never know when one door closes. You keep an open mind. You pick yourself up. I got to throw Rocky in here somewhere, being from Philly, but and I'll probably gonna butcher this, but he's got, I think it's Rocky Balboa, and he says, he talks about, it ain't about getting knocked down. It's about getting back up, right? It's not about how hard life hits you. It's about getting back up. And that was just the mentality that I had. Like, all right, this sucks. We're going to figure it out. And so I took that job and just tried to get back to paying the rent, right? I was just trying to get back to making ends meet. And I started to make a little bit of money there. And, out of nowhere, a client comes in, and the account was assigned to me, and the company was called Real Estate Riches. And they were a mentorship program, and they taught people how to invest in real estate, how to buy real estate. And I should have mentioned this all along. And I had a soul searching moment in the week of 9/11 because the markets were closed. We were literally off the whole week. It was a Tuesday. We were off the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think I played golf with my buddy, and we were sitting around a table shooting the shit and talking about what are we doing? Basically, it was a soul searching moment. Yeah. And I think at one point we had a conversation about who are the richest people and what do they do? And then not Warren Buffett and Bill Gates. It was who's in your phone, like who knows you, mm-hmm. How wealthy are they? And if you called them, would they say, "Hey Joe" or "Hey Jamie"? That was my buddy I was with. And the two wealthiest people I knew were in real estate. And I was like, that's where I always wanted to be. I never could figure out how to crack into it, which is my own mental block. That's all it was. And mental roadblock, I should say. And so I was like, all right, this is my inspiration. I don't know. I still didn't know how. I was still floundering with, and we didn't have podcasts like this to listen to back then. There were no podcasts. If there were, nobody was listening to them. Here along comes this account, Real Estate Riches, and they teach people how to buy real estate. So they're advertising on the radio to get people to come to a seminar in person because there were no webinars back then. And so I'm at this once a month. I'm at these seminars with these guys, and I'm watching these people, and I'm getting to meet the people that go through their program, and they're buying houses and they're having success. I'm like, what am I doing? It's right here in front of me. So I went through their program. And I started to learn how to do that. But now I've got 3 jobs, right? So I'm selling radio. I'm still bartending at a different place at night. And now I'm getting up on the weekends, Saturday and Sunday morning, going to look at houses to buy, rehab, and rent or flip. Actually, I think because I was broke, I started wholesaling. And then another client came along, and it was a developer. and they were advertising these high-end condos, and our listening audience was the right audience for them. And I got to know the head guy, and he just through, I don't know, 6 months of just that relationship, he said, my buddy needs somebody like you. He's got a commercial real estate syndication company. They syndicate 1031 exchanges. And I was like, well, I don't know anything about commercial real estate. I don't know anything about 1031 exchanges, but I'll go meet him. So I went and met him. I got the job. So I left radio. I went to work for DeSanto Realty Group. I ended up over the next, I learned enough to be dangerous in multifamily and office and 1031 exchanges, which I'm now, I'm not an expert, but I'm dangerous enough. I know enough. And so now I've got this background. In the next couple of years, I end up raising like $90 some million of 1031 exchange money for mostly multifamily, some office, and a little bit of hotel. And 2008, I say eight, really started in 2007 for us, but 8 and 9, if you recall, I know you're old enough to have lived through that. Yeah. So, and the syndication business, and in particular, the 1031 exchange business, went up in that industry went from $4 billion in 2006 to $250 million in 2009. And, it was just, we were out of business. So I had to reinvent again. And I think around this point, I was starting to figure out, hey, maybe you're an entrepreneur. But fortunately, I'm married. My wife has a great job. She's in pharmaceutical sales and marketing. So she carried us for a couple of years there. But I met a guy at a tax lien seminar trying to figure out what the next move was. And we started buying distressed debt together, charged off second mortgages, residential second mortgages. Everybody we knew told us we were nuts. And that was almost a challenge to me. Like, why? Why are we nuts? There's something to this. These other companies are doing it. So I was also maybe in that moment, I realized I'm curious. I'm a curious person. You tell me I can't do it. All right, maybe I can't, but at least want to know why. So we started investigating, and I just raised a lot of money at 6.5%, and these guys were selling these loans at 25% yields as reperformers. And this is what we learned about. And I was like, wait a second, what's their yield? So we ended up diving into this business. We put our own money up first. We started buying non-performing mortgages. That was 2009, I think we started. We formalized in 2010. 15 years later, tomorrow we close on another trade of charged off second mortgages. We're buying $115 million of unpaid principal balance. We've been doing this for 15 years now. Phenomenal business, but even that business had a down cycle. And that's how I got into storage, because what I realized when the CFPB was created, they put these regulations on the banks that basically, they didn't say you couldn't sell, but they made it really unappealing to sell the debt. So for 3 years, we couldn't buy any debt. We had to let people go. We had built a company by this point. We had to let people go, and kind of looked in the mirror one day. And I was like, this isn't a business. This is a hobby, because we have no control over when we can buy it. So I had to reinvent again. So but you could, as you can see, that the string here is residential, commercial real estate, debt, which is real estate, and now self-storage. So it was all, I've been in real estate related entities and businesses for 20 years, but it was an email I got at another low moment of what are we going to do? And I was doing everything. Started hard money lending. I started buying houses, rehab and flip, because there was a lot of that product out there, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. I tasted the commercial real estate, and I wanted to get back there, and I love the debt side. So I got this email, probably because I've been to so many conferences over that 10 plus year period. So I'm on everybody's list, and I'm also a curious person, as I mentioned. So I'm that sucker who signs up for stuff just to see what it's about. So I get emails all over. So I get this email. It says real estate, the subject, real estate without toilets, tenants, and trash. I was like, all right, I'm going to open that one. Yeah. So I opened it, and I kept reading, and it wasn't the subject line, because frankly, the subject line, it worked, but it's false, because in self-storage, tenants are kind of our lifeline. And sometimes they leave trash behind, but there's definitely no toilets. But what really got me interested in this, in self-storage, and starting to explore more, and by the way, this is 2016 or 17 when this email comes in. It's hazy as to exactly when. But I don't know the first thing about self-storage when I get this email. All the conferences I've been to, there was not one self-storage operator. I've never rented self-storage when I opened this email. I wasn't, not that I hadn't heard of the name self-storage before, but I just never gave it two thoughts. And I guess I just thought it was, that's those garage looking things with orange doors. I don't know, it's whatever you're used to driving by that you never pay attention to if you don't need it. So I don't know anything about it. And that's, I just want to tell you that that's how I started with zero knowledge. Right. But what was interesting was in the body of the email, it talked about how 80% at the time, so this is 2017, let's say, 80% of all self-storage facilities are owned by mom and pop owners. And I went, whoa, that's interesting. And it said something like there were 50 some thousand self-storage facilities, which is a lot. I mean, that's more than Starbucks, McDonald's, and, one or two other franchises combined. So I was like, oh, that's really interesting. And I as I was reading, I was probably thinking, yeah, but they're probably all owned by Public and CubeSmart and Extra Space and Life. But they're not. They own the minority of the entire industry. Because of my experience in distressed debt, where we're buying second mortgages, and I'm telling you, this was the wild, wild west when we got into this space. So if we got the banks to sell them to us, but the secondary market for it was just the wild, wild west. And there was so much it was a fragmented, dislocated market. There was no efficient market for what is this loan worth versus that loan type of thing. We kind of helped establish it and create kind of a more normal, and I don't know, it's not a commodity today, but it's a different market today than it used to be. But it was the lack of information that I thought was interesting, because at the time we got into self-storage, I don't know if people were really talking about it yet. They started to. Now it's all people talk about. Yeah. But when we started to get in to self-storage and really investigate it, and then we went through a mentorship program and all that, it was just starting to be a household name in terms of, and from investors and podcasts and stuff like that, right? Yeah. But what was so interesting to me was it was 80% mom and pop, because to me that meant fragmented, dislocated market, similar to distressed debt. And I'm a humble person, probably wrong more times than I'm right, but I was right about this. It was really interesting. That's what really interested me in self-storage. And I got to tell you, Jason, it's been nothing but fun, just continuing to learn more and more every day. There's niches within the niches of self-storage. We're kind of creating one ourselves right now, or at least making it bigger. And I know we're having a blast. It's not that we haven't made mistakes along the way. We're always learning. We learn every day. I learn from people that just start out, but it's wild to me. I think 2019 is when I went through the mentorship, and all we were trying to do was buy one facility. And it was like getting one facility felt like climbing Mount Everest, or it seemed like that daunting of a task back then. Yeah. Not that I didn't think I could do it. It just seemed like, wow, that's so far in the distance. And next month, we're going to close on our 20th in 5 years. And that's like going to the moon for me. If you told me 5 years ago I would be closing on my 20th, teaching at Scott Meyer's Self-Storage Investing Academy, that I went through as a student, and mentoring his students, which we're doing now, I would have told you you're nuts 5 years ago. But here we are today. So and by the way, for anyone who's looking to get into self-storage, there's never been a better time. We could talk about that if you want to. I know you, I don't want to go get too, I don't know, business-like on this very friendly conversational, why the heck are you doing this podcast? But I'm happy to talk about whatever you want. But that's been my journey to where we are today, and it's every day it's exciting.
Yeah, there's so much there that I think is really valuable. That the times that you've reinvented yourself. I think that the different industries, but in a lot of ways, just recognizing and being willing to take a chance on something that's like maybe not fully understood. I think so many people really hold themselves back just by fear. And so if you can see something that, you know, someone else has done, they've had success, you can see a pattern in the business that you're trying to develop, the model, like you can see something there, like taking those chances, and it's okay to be wrong here and there. Like I feel like that's where a lot of people miss out. And it's, you know, being an entrepreneur has now become a thing.
Yeah.
But it's become a name. You know, it's like things like house hacking and Burr and all of this stuff has all, now they all have fancy names, but like at the end of the day, all that stuff's been going on for a long time. House
Mhm.
hacking is having roommates. Basically, I did that long because I couldn't afford to not to. Like it's just kind of things that people did to try and get ahead and realize there are ways to create opportunity. And I feel like that's almost the summary of what you just told in your story is you see places to create opportunity, and don't hesitate to go do that. And so I just think people should listen to that and like realize that there's you don't have to, it's, in fact, not only do you not have to have an opportunity handed to you, that's not going to happen. You're going to have to go and do something to create your own opportunities. And you've taken these moments and done that. And so I think, you know, whether it be after 9/11 or when, you know, buying distressed debt became challenging. I mean, you've just shifted and pivoted to find the next thing. So um, I commend you on that. And I guess we can start kind of going down that self-storage road. You mentioned something there. You said there's never been a better time in self-storage. And so I'd be interested to hear why you say that, because um, I feel like in the world of real estate, or maybe just, you know, purchasing assets in general, that tends to be a common message regardless of when the time is. And I think there's something to that. But I really want to dive into kind of why you specifically say that now, Joe. And like,
Yeah, I'm not saying that because that's my business.
yeah,
I truly believe that, and I'm about to back it up. But I totally agree with what you just said prior to that. There's a phrase or saying that was made famous by Ted Lasso now, but it was really Walt Whitman, which was kind of back to what I was saying. I didn't realize it at the time, me being curious, but the saying is, "Be curious, not judgmental."
mm-hmm.
And when we were getting into the distressed debt business, everyone told us we were insane. People that should have known better about how mortgage and debt and the law and legality behind it all works. I've been talking real estate attorneys told us we were going to lose everything we had. We were crazy. What, you know, I don't know, we're nearly 20,000 loans purchased later. They couldn't have been more wrong. It was going into that business, and I don't know why, maybe because my back was up against the wall. I didn't have a choice. I don't know why I did, but that business was the validation that I needed for the rest of my life. I will be wrong in the future. I know,
Yeah.
but to the message that you were just delivering to your audience. I couldn't agree with more. Taking chances and taking risks doesn't mean, you know, you're not at the craps table putting everything on a number, right? It's not,
Yeah.
you're not at the roulette table putting everything on black. That's not what that means. It means be curious, analyze, do your due diligence, but don't necessarily listen to the naysayers, right? Just especially when they may or may not know what they're talking about. We see this all the time in self storage because a lot of the facilities we buy are from mom and pop sellers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, we bought 20 or we're about to close on our 20th, so I'll use 10 because that math is easy for me. 4 out of 10, 3 to 4 out of 10 that we buy, it's about the number for the seller. They have to have this number, even if it's not worth that. And when you get to the bottom of why, it's because their son, their daughter, their neighbor, their cousin, whoever who doesn't know anything about self storage and how to value it, told them that's what it's worth. So that's a seller listening to a sphere of influence that's has no idea what they're talking about. And I think I know because we're just human beings. We interact in a social world, whether it's family or friends or business colleagues or whatever. They all have an opinion about whatever it is we want to do, whether it's a single family flip, a self-storage facility, an RV park, it doesn't matter. They all want to tell us and validate their own feelings about whether we're right or wrong, and they actually have no idea. So just be careful and don't let people, and by the way, if they're right, you know what, a stop clock is right twice a day too. They still didn't know why, they just got lucky. Yeah. So do the due diligence yourself. Be curious, not judgmental. Find out. They may be right, and it may not be a good deal or a good business or a good time. Yeah. But validate that yourself. Don't listen to other people.
Completely agree.
And I think not doing that, or doing that on our own and not listening, was the validation, especially with the success we've had, that I needed. And now I feel unstoppable. That didn't come out right. I feel like there's no challenge I couldn't entertain if I just applied myself to it and really studied it and did my due diligence and really got to understand something. I think I could go into that next business. I think anyone listening could. And let me tell you something. Yeah. None of you know me. If you knew me, you'd realize, hey, that moron can do this. I can too. So why is self-storage the right time? We buy, like most commercial real estate assets, you're buying the trailing 12 performance, right? We buy based on the NOI, the net operating income, and we put a cap rate on that, which is a multiplier effect, which is market and asset driven as to what's the right number. And there's that calculation spits out, this is what this facility's worth, but it's really driven by that NOI, that net operating income. And that's important for today, but also what's the trailing 12 NOI. So the last 12 months of performance. So if I'm looking at a facility today, I'm looking at the numbers from February 24 to February 25. All right. Yeah. I promise you, in most cases, 90+% of the cases, every self-storage facility's trailing 12 is down year over year. We just came out of the worst 2 to 2.5 years in self-storage that I think the industry's ever seen. Not because there's a lot of people, I've heard different theories of, it's because they built too much. No, it's still local. So some areas they built too much. Some areas they haven't built enough, and they still didn't perform well. So it's not overbuilding. That can be a factor. It's not necessarily the factor. The main ingredient is, there are two really. We just came out of the worst 2.5 year period following the best 2.5 year period. And if you're doing your math in your head, you're like, how could that be the case? We were in COVID 2.5 years ago. And that's exactly why, because self-storage was deemed essential. If you recall, everybody moved back in their house, out of offices. They cleaned out rooms in their house, their garage, everything. They put it in storage. Occupancies went through the roof. When our occupancies go up, we can just keep growing rates because it doesn't matter. There's someone else moving in behind you, right? When you lose all that, it's a downward death spiral. So now you're managing rates downward while you're losing occupancy. And that's what happened. We rode this COVID wave up. And then people started to move back, move stuff back into their homes, go back to work. Life starts to go back to normal again, except if you recall in 2023, interest rates went up 400 basis points in 1 year. What did that do? Well, that hurt the ability to buy facilities. We had to find that new market norm. But more importantly, from an operational standpoint, nobody was moving. Mm-hmm. If you ask a real estate agent how they did the last 2.5 years, their transaction volume was way down, which means so were the transaction volume of people moving in and out of self-storage facilities. So we had people moving out to begin with and nobody backfilling it. So now it became a downward death spiral in occupancy and rate. Again, there's exceptions to the rule, but mostly across the board. So why is now the best time? Reason number one, you're buying trailing 12 numbers, which are discounted based on where they're going. And I can back that up in a minute too. Two, there are still 70% of self-storage facilities owned by mom and pop. Mom and pop self-storage owners are baby boomers for the most part, like 95%. and they're all getting out of the business one way or the other in the next 10 years. Their probably average age is probably high 60s, low 70s. Every mom and pop I talk to, which is, if we're closing on our 20th, I think we bought 3 from brokers. So that's 17 off market. Right. So we're mostly mom and pop. That's who we're buying from. Right. And they're, for whatever, either retiring, they're buying houses in Florida or RVs, or unfortunately, because of their age, they're getting sick, or their spouse or death starts to come into play at some point here. And again, I'm sorry to have to say it that way, but it's just a fact of a reality of life. Yeah. And, again, so 70% of these facilities are going to change hands in the next 10 years, right? Name another business where that's about to happen. I can't think of one. 3, whether you're in real estate today, let's say you're a single family guy who's got a portfolio, who, like, we all started out that way. I can't wait. I own 1. Now I want to get to 10. I want to get to 50. I'm going to get to 100. Until you get to 10, you're like, this sucks. Unless you're like really super organized and a great operator, which I wasn't, a lot of us realize, hey, we're not exactly cut out for this. So you start thinking about multifamily, right? Which is better, but has its own set of issues. And now you're a landlord. And again, I don't want to beat up multifamily. I love it. I invest in it. I think it's here to stay for the long term. I just don't want to operate it myself. And I certainly want to try to break into real estate through multifamily. So you have the opportunity to, wherever you are in your path, you're looking at, hey, I want to get into real estate, or I want to grow in real estate into commercial, right? The office market I don't know how to even evaluate that right now, what's happening with office. Industrial has been hot as hell, obviously, so is self-storage. But what is unique about self-storage is 2 things. There are a ton of facilities that you can buy for under $1 million. $500,000-$600,000 that you're not competing with public storage. You're not even competing with me for. Right. We're not buying 5,000 square foot facilities. We buy 20,000 to 50,000. Public's buying 50,000 and up. Right. So I try not to compete with them. And guys like me probably aren't competing with you. You might be, because we do buy them and wholesale them, and we have students that we try to place in them. But for the most part, there's not a lot of us buying these size facilities. So that's wide open for people it's a wide open kind of space within self-storage to enter into. And what makes it even more interesting is the SBA. We're a business. We qualify for SBA financing. So case in point, you want to buy a $1 million multifamily property or a $1 million self-storage facility, your capital requirements are very different. Mm-hmm. I can use the SBA with self-storage. You cannot use the SBA for multifamily. So for a multifamily deal, let's say I have to put 30% down. Is that fair? 25%? I don't know. Whatever.
Let's at least 25. 30. Yeah, at least 30 at this point. Yeah.
Okay, 30. Yeah, I was going to say, when I use conventional debt for self-storage, we're at 65, 70 LTV. So yeah, it's about, I don't know exactly where multifamily is. Yeah. So let's say 30. So I can, again, I'm not that smart, so I can do that math on $1 million. So I need 300,000 to put down, plus closing costs. I can get into a self-storage deal at $1 million at 10% down, 90% financing. So now I need 100,000 plus closing costs. It's just the barrier to entry is very different, right? It's a business, but I would say multifamily is pretty much a business that just doesn't qualify as a business. Yeah. Right. So it's just the advantages that you get, the timing of, man, it's a great time. It's not just a great time today. It will be for the next 10 years. The financing's on your side. One thing I always loved about self-storage, and I have seen it in action as an owner-operator, is the flexibility. First of all, we're not landlords. We don't take bailment of your stuff. We just provide a space for it. So you stop paying, you're out in 45 days. And we can talk about storage wars if you want to have fun with that and whether that's real or not. But I don't know if I can get sued by saying it's not. But but I have no idea. You
probably won't hear this podcast, so I don't think it's real.
but I have owned single family houses and in small multi. God, depending on where you are, and I know this from distressed debt. We don't really foreclose anybody, but I know what the laws are. You get into these Northeast states or these very blue states. Gosh, it could be a year to 2 years to evict somebody,
Yeah.
right? Where that unit's not producing any cash, and self storage is 45 days. You're out, and it's not a revenue event. It's I want to get it re-rented,
Yeah.
right? So we don't deal with those laws. We don't have the headaches. There's no emergencies. And then again, for the next 10 years, I know I can be in business. And then on top of that, I forgot. This is another. There might be five. I said three or four. There's probably 5 or 6 reasons. I'm 51. I'm Gen X. My generation doesn't use self storage. We're like 10% usage. We're a small generation, and we're like the worst generation for self storage. And I can back that up personally. I would never rent self storage. I've got a house, a garage. I got an attic, a basement, a garage. Right. So I can't imagine spending that money each month. We love you if you're doing it, but I know there's only 10% of you actually doing it out there. The next generation, millennials, are the second largest generation to the boomers. They use self storage or expect to at a clip of 30% of their generation. So they're almost twice as big as mine and 3 times the usage. And the generation after is projected to use it at 50%. I think they're a little smaller than millennials, bigger than us, smaller than millennials, but 50% usage. So you have the usage going up and the numbers of users going up. And on top of that, you have multifamilies, which we're constantly, I feel like for the last 10 years, we've had a housing shortage, which they include apartments in there, of 4 million units. We're short 4 million units a year into perpetuity, it seems like, because they're doing nothing about it. But they're building more and more multifamilies, smaller and smaller units with less and less storage closets.
Right. Yeah.
There's so many factors that are just saying, what are you doing? At the very least, look at this. If you're going to invest passively, if you don't want to be an operator, invest passively with somebody. This is a business that isn't going away. It's only growing.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. I didn't know you could purchase them with an SBA loan. The rest of it, I think I was semi-familiar. I also didn't know the statistics on usage across generations. I'm Gen X and have a storage unit, but I also live in LA. So we don't have basements and we have small houses unless you're a famous person who's ultra wealthy.
I would suspect the 10% of our generation that uses it is urban living.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where you don't have a choice. I get it. I have, like I said, I have an attic, a basement, a garage. I just don't need it.
Yeah. Well, and it's frankly probably could get rid of all of it. Realistically, that's the thing that always has fascinated me about self-storage. Like I also like it as an asset class. Sometimes I'm like, my mind is like, just get rid of the stuff.
All right, you ready for this?
We're a whole country full of hoarders. Like you can't actually just get rid of the stuff. And it's like,
so there's a Planet Fitness methodology to this or mindset to this. So you ever try to? I pick on Planet Fitness, any gym.
Yeah.
You ever try to cancel a gym membership?
It's not easy. It's not.
Yeah, you got to go in person. Then they try to sell you something else, and then they shame you.
Yeah.
Right. Plus, it's on your credit card. So if you're even looking at that charge, right, you have to see the charge, or your spouse sees the charge, and then you get an argument over it, and then you're like, "Well, I got to get back to the gym anyway because I need to start working out, or spring's coming, or whatever it is. Summer's coming. I need my beach body. I'll go next month, or if between them and you, it's hard. It's sticky. It's hard to cancel. Self-storage differently is very similar. When is the right weekend to move all your stuff out of your unit? Right? You just paid. So April 1st is coming. You're about to just pay again. Right? So you got the whole month to move out. So you just paid. So is it that weekend? Is it the next weekend? No, because kids have this. We've got that thing, and then we got to rent a truck. what are we going to do with the stuff? We're going to throw it out. Do we need to take it to the dump? Do we, how do we get rid of it? We'll do it next weekend. It's raining. There's never a good weekend to move your stuff. It's a very sticky business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense. And like I said, we do have some storage units in our portfolio. And I think it's, having owned both that and multifamily, like, I really like that business aspect of it. You have, I guess you have a tenant in a way, but most of the time they're not living there. And so it's just a different, well, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know if this is everywhere, but here in LA, that I think there are some.
Yeah, you're going to see more in your
units,
clients, and that's one of the. It's a business. It's something we have to monitor and stay on top of and make sure we don't have that because we don't want it. But
yeah, but so I mean, I think it's a phenomenal asset class to have in the portfolio. Whether again, like you said, active or passive, I think it's a really good place to be in.
Yeah.
Joe, in the interest of time, I do want to switch gears so I can ask you the questions that I try to ask every guest. We've talked a lot about kind of the benefits of self-storage, and I think very compelling. And we'll I'm sure you get some calls about this too. But I do want to switch gears, and the first question I ask every guest is related to the name of the show, being Know Your Why, and I like to know. Okay, what is your why? You've had success in a number of different arenas, real estate related, but a lot of success. I feel like I get a sense of maybe where you'll go with this just from the conversation. But what is your why? What kind of keeps you driving forward? Keeps you excited to push and grow?
Yeah. I will tell you what it is today, but I'll tell you it wasn't always this, and there were times I didn't really know what my why was. I mean, actually, there were times where I didn't have a choice. The why was because you got to survive, or you got to pay the rent, you got to eat, you got to. But today, part of it is fulfilling. I'm a curious. If I'm describe myself, I'd say I'm curious, which I've probably belabored at this point, but I'm also kind of a deal junkie. So every self-storage deal, believe it or not, I know they all just look like the same metal boxes, but they're different. Every deal is different. Oh, yeah. It's unique. The negotiation, the seller, the facility itself, they're all different. I mean, there's a lot of overlap to them, but they're all different. So they're fun. It's fun. But, when I'm, if I've had a week where I'm just exhausted and tired and like, how do I keep going, or how do I make that extra, that next phone call? I'm married with 3 kids now, and it's not, I don't have a Jeff Bezos why, or a Bill Gates why. I don't have any, I shouldn't say desire to be a billionaire. I think we'd all love to be a billionaire, but I don't have, that's not what drives me. It's being able to, I'm going to bring it back to sports for you. We were chatting about sports before.
Yeah. It's best if every podcast circles around to sports in some way.
And it's not about my sports or what I love today, because actually it is. It's what I love now is I like watching my kids play sports. So I have a freshman in high school, a 6th grader that play lacrosse. Those are my boys. And my daughter's a dancer. She's a junior in high school. It's the flexibility to be able to leave and do whatever I'm doing and go watch their game. And because I'm my own business owner and I make my own hours, and making your own hours doesn't mean, instead of working 9 to 5 today, I'm going to work 9 to 3 so I can go watch this game. When you're an entrepreneur, maybe there's stages of entrepreneurship, but I'm at a stage where I probably work 80 hours a week. So really just stealing some overtime to go, spend time with my kids and go on vacations, probably more vacations than when I otherwise would have if I didn't do what I did in the way I do it. But being able to go to my daughter's or take her to when she travels for dance, or like I said, my son's lacrosse competitions. I mean, the tournaments I was in, we were in Palm Springs for a tournament. We'll maybe go to Lake Placid for a tournament. So we're outside of Philadelphia. We're constantly in Delaware and Maryland and Virginia for tournaments. And It's just being able to do that. And then my son is my older son is he's been dying to. He's like a little mini entrepreneur in the making. Not because of me. Like I don't think I had his drive at his age. But he had me on a call the other night with a guy learning how to become like an Amazon wholesaler, which I don't have time for right now.
Yeah.
But how do I say no to that?
Right.
Right. So I want to grow a business with him. So the other thing I go to Strategic Coach. Have you ever read the book, Who Not How?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's one of my favorites.
So Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy wrote it, right?
Yep.
But really, Ben Hardy wrote it because he's the author, and Dan Sullivan was the content creator, and that's part of the premise of the book.
It's the best support of a book titled "Who Not How" is to get someone else to write your book for you. Like
exactly,
you couldn't have a better example of it. It's pretty incredible.
It's the manifestation of what is in the book.
Yeah,
and so he has a leadership training program that I go to once a quarter, and you could go to different parts of the United States. I actually go to Toronto because it's closer, and that's where their home office is. And the workshops are so incredible. They're so powerful. And like one of them, I'm in my second year there. And one of them we talked about, I forget what he calls it, but how long do you want to live to? And you're like, as if I have a choice, right? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
But when you really get into it, you do. It's a mindset. If you want to live to 120, what are you doing? What do you need to be doing today to make sure that happens?
Get there. Mm-hmm.
Obviously things can happen. You get in a car accident, like who knows, but outside of things out of your control, what can you control to make sure you do that? Well, and then you go into that, once you do that exercise, it's like, well, and I've always said, I'm not someone who would retire. My wife's like, well, when we retire, I'm like, well, what does retirement mean to you? Because it doesn't mean doing nothing to me. I'm always going to do something. So you get into that conversation like, all right, well, when I'm 70 and 80 and 90, what am I doing? I'm like, well, I hope I'm on the board of my son's company, helping him grow a company, and maybe my grandkids' daughters or sons' company, or whatever it is, whatever their passion is. I hope I'm right there with them, partaking in it, and hopefully imparting advice. Hopefully it's still good advice. I don't know, but just that's my why. It's to be able to not to get rich necessarily. What's funny is I heard a great saying recently. We were doing at one of our mentorship academies. We get together. We have everybody talk about what's your moonshot, which is essentially, it's funny. The whole purpose of the moonshot, you go around the room, is to talk about your why. What is your why? Why? So there's people who've come to this academy to learn about self-storage to make a change in their life, right? To become self-storage owner operators, to get out of the rat race type of thing, if you will. So we go around the room, we talk about what is your why? And everyone's like, well, to pass on generational wealth and this and quit my job. And they're all great reasons. And one guy, that's why I said, I'm always learning. This one guy, 2 academies ago, said something I'd never heard before. And he said, and this is what part of my new why. It's not, he said to me, he said, no disrespect to all of you who've talked about passing, generational wealth. He said, to me, wealth isn't about money. It's a mindset. It's teaching my kids and grandkids how to make money, not just give them money. That's part of my why.
Yeah.
And that dovetails perfectly with my curiosity. And now I'm trying to help my kids be curious about things. How does this work? Why would this work? Why might you like that? Why might not you like that? That sounds like a good idea, but would you be a good operator at it? Is that really your unique ability? Is that something you should be doing, or do we get a who for that? So it's that when I say wealth now, that's really what I mean. It's not about the, handing millions of dollars down. It's because you can give it to them and they can blow it. How many second and third generation businesses go out of business? It's really more of the transfer of the knowledge. That's one of my whys today. So it's being able to spend time at my leisure with my friends too, but family, my kids, and what's important in our lives today, and then that knowledge transfer so that they can do that same thing and perpetuate that going forward. That's my why.
Yeah, I love it. Completely agree. When people hear this and they want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
Yeah, either our website or my email. So our website is belrosegroup.com, and group is just GRP. So Belrose, by the way, is one L. So BEL Rose, ROSE, GRP.com. And if you're interested in investing or buying facilities, you'll easy to navigate. You can see where to go. And then if you have questions, you want to learn about the academy, you want to invest, whatever, love getting emails. Nobody ever emails me, by the way. I give out my email all the time. Nobody ever emails me. But here it is. Be the first. Joe at belroseam.com. So BELROSE, A as an asset, M as a management.com.
Fantastic. We'll put that in the show notes. Somebody email him for sure. Well worth it.
It's going to be your audience, Jason. It's going to be the first.
I hope so. That'd be great. Joe, thanks for coming on the show today. Thanks for everything you shared. I think this has been just a phenomenal discussion and really great way for people to look at entrepreneurship, whether that, is looking at your journey and learning from it, or what your focus is, your why now is, as to, what the future should look like. And I'm very much appreciate the time that you spent with us, and just thank you sincerely.
I thank you right back for having me on and for hosting such a great podcast like this. Like I said, with such a different angle, I think it's amazing. I can't wait to listen to some of yours.
I appreciate it. Folks, make sure you connect with Joe, and please like, rate, and review the show so we can continue to get more great guests. And as always, thank you for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?